All right, let's start today with news out of Russia and Ukraine. These headlines are sort of unbelievable. I'm going to stop short of calling them Kafkaesque, but it's almost appropriate. The Associated Press reports that Vladimir Putin, the Russian president, has declared martial law in the annexed regions of Ukraine. Now, that headline might make sense if there was really an annexation that took place. What we're really talking about is occupied regions of Ukraine in which Putin is claiming sovereignty, but in which there really is no sovereignty. And so it's kind of a weird thing to say I'm declaring martial law in parts of a different country, which is fundamentally what Putin is doing. But of course, his perspective would be a different one. Let's look at a little bit of this article, and we'll talk about the reasons for this and the implications and sort of what comes next. Associated Press, once again, Russian President Vladimir Putin declared martial law Wednesday in the 4 regions of Ukraine that Moscow annexed and gave additional emergency powers to the heads of all regions of Russia. Putin didn't immediately spell out the steps that would be taken under martial law. I think we can guess some of them, but said his order was effective starting Thursday. His decree gives law enforcement agencies 3 days to submit specific proposals and orders the creation of territorial defense forces in those 4 annexed regions. The statement here from Putin, again, it's all extremely dystopian. Quote, "We are working to solve very difficult large-scale tasks to ensure Russia's security and safe future, to protect our people." Those who are on the front lines are undergoing training at firing ranges and training centers should feel our support and know that they have our big, great country and unified people behind their back. Sounds a little bit Trumpy, quite frankly. The Associated Press article also adds the upper house of Russia's parliament was set to quickly seal Putin's decision to impose martial law. Again, the regions we're talking about are Donetsk, Kherson, Luhansk, and Zaporizhia. Draft legislation indicates it may involve restrictions on travel and public gatherings, tighter censorship, and broader authority for law enforcement agencies. Think about the evil genius of this, right? It's not even your country. You say, oh, yeah, we're annexing these parts of the country. It's not formally done. And I understand that when a country is annexing part of another, the idea of formality, often what you're talking about is just years of it sort of being under the control. And then you say, well, I guess now it's kind of annexed. That definitely has not happened. And then you say, now that this is part of our country and we've annexed this, we're going to impose further restrictions and further repress and suppress reporting from the area, et cetera. The belief, there's a few different beliefs, sort of like most likely lowest hanging fruit priorities here. One would be legal cover for the wave of repressions that is certainly to come, as absurd as that cover is. Hey, this is Russia now, and so now we're imposing martial law. The other aspect of this, and a couple of people wrote to me, said, David, it's kind of silly to say you're like imposing martial law in any kind of formal way because it's a war zone, and so by definition, it's all kind of under the control, at least ostensibly, of the military. So to now declare the martial law, it kind of is under a de facto martial law type situation because it's militaries fighting each other. We're looking at a forced mobilization of Ukrainians in the area to start getting the Ukrainians out. And this is, by many reasonable assessments, a war crime. But by pretending that this is now Russia, that these 4 regions are part of Russia, and that the individuals there are Russian, because remember, he's, quote, annexed it, I don't want to call it plausible, but it sort of is a 1% attempt at claiming that what you're doing is just the governance of your own country rather than an alleged war crime. So it's bonkers and it's crazy. And of course, we continue to wonder about what is the end game here. There does not seem to be a face-saving off-ramp for Vladimir Putin here. And increasingly, the questions among the United States and Western allies continue to be, how far do we allow this to go and for how long? And what are the sort of red lines at which point different interventions would happen? For how long and to what degree and in what particular ways do we, again, U.S., Western allies, NATO, et cetera, sort of these Venn circles of those individual groups, continue to fund and supply Ukraine? And at what point do we imagine that the circumstances may change? And there aren't really good answers to that. In the U.S., as is often the case, the conversation becomes what I call toxically partisan. And what I mean by that is, of course, if different individuals with different worldviews would have different opinions about what should be done in Russia. Obviously, more isolationist individuals would say we should do nothing. We shouldn't even send money, don't send arms, send nothing at all. Don't send legs, don't send anything. That's a joke, by the way. Others would say, well, we send money but not arms, or we send money and arms but absolutely nothing beyond that. Or, well, what about training? And then, of course, at the very far end of that would be sort of boots on the ground. The unfortunate thing is that when I say it's become toxically partisan, you have many right-wingers who seek only to attack Joe Biden, who take the position that Biden is just wasting money in Ukraine. Now, a lot of these same people earlier were saying Biden hasn't done enough to protect the Ukrainian people, and Russia never would have even invaded if Trump was president. So you can't really get anywhere with about 60 to 70% of people on this issue. I'm really willing to entertain reasonable perspectives. I don't want to say from both sides, but regardless of political ideology, I'm willing to entertain reasonable perspectives that will both not allow Russia to just walk all over whoever they want to walk over, while also not committing or involving the United States in a way that would be either counterproductive or not particularly appropriate, given that we should not be the world's police. I'm willing to entertain any reasonable ideas that fall under that umbrella. If you have any as to what this should look like, feel free to email me.